Hello YouTube and fellow preppers, I am Geordie Prepper. In today's video we're doing a coverage of an article in a mainstream media outlet, and I'm not going to say which mainstream media site this is. It'll probably be obvious from the layout, but this mainstream media outlet and this company historically and currently are involved in horrific sexual abuse of children, and to be honest I just don't like saying their name because of this abuse, which they force the public to fund. So this article, however, is on their website. I found it interesting because it's an attack on preppers, and it's a continuation of their rhetoric into portraying to the naive and asleep masses that preppers are mentally unstable. And Peter Stanford, or Pete Mind Wiseman, and Armored Cockroach, who have contributed to the article for this series that he's covering. All of the points that these two raise are a perfect representation of the prepper community. I agree with everything that they say 100%, and I also like the fact that they didn't give the reporter in the video very much room to maneuver. They are obviously very careful with what they were saying, and I do believe that they are aware of the mainstream media portrayal of preppers in general. So my hat's tipped to them for their performance in the video, because they obviously know that preppers are under attack. But I wanted to cover the article and just to raise some things in the article, and it's just to maintain to preppers that when talking to the mainstream media, you need to be very careful about the fact that preppers are under attack. However well-intentioned and the reasons for talking to the mainstream media are, anything that you say and anything that you do will be shown in a negative light. It's just their inherent hatred for preppers and for anyone who takes control of their life in the way that preppers do, when at the minute the current system is one of slavery and control. So they just do not like preppers, and they will twist anything that you say however that you say it, and they're very, very clever about it. But as to the article, The British People Preparing for the End of the World, it's an interesting title because the world's going to be here for at least another 4 billion years. So I don't think the human race will be around to see the end of the world, but the life on this earth, historically, 99% of all the species that have ever existed have died out, and humans aren't immune to this historical fact, and they shouldn't be, to be honest. The natural order of things on the planet, it has its time and then it's removed. Our technology may be able to protect us in a bubble, so to speak, for a short amount of time, but if Mother Nature wants us removed from this planet, then she will remove us. It's basically as simple as that. In the event of a catastrophe, prepper Peter Stanford plans to take to the waterways in his canoe, which is a really good idea. I mean, if you look at even bank holidays, how gridlocked the transportation grids are, over land, I can really see why Pete Mind Wiseman chose the waterways. They're just such a good idea, and you know, they formed the backbone of England's industrial activities for many, many years. British survivalists known as preppers are fixated on the need to survive in the event of a catastrophe. What motivates them? They use this word fixated, and there's a specific reason why they use it. Cause someone to develop an obsessive attachment to someone or something. Now, it's obsessive. This is all playing into the mind games that preppers are mentally unstable. So they'll believe that preppers are obsessive, that they, are fixated on that the world should end, when that's not the case. Like in this example, he became fixated on the idea of a third world war. That's not what a prepper is. It's not what a prepper does. And they continue this rhetoric throughout the article. It's just disgusting that they have such loathing for the prepper community. What motivates them? Well, I can talk a little bit about what motivates me to be a prepper. I want to reclaim the freedom that I've lost, that's been taken away, and I want to be in control of my own fate. I want to decide where it takes me, you know. I don't want to be one of the naive masses, the herd-like populace, which is so prevalent in today's society, where they just basically suck on the government's teat, and once that's removed, they just have no clue how to defend and to continue to survive, basically. At the end of the day, that naivety could kill them, and I don't want to be in that position. Beside a stream in the middle of the Bedfordshire countryside, Peter Stanford, who describes himself as a motivational life coach, is pumping up his inflatable canoe by hand. This is his chosen method of transport for escaping an apocalyptic situation, which he views as anything from a financial crash to a repeat of the London riots. Well, financial crashes are an inherent problem of a central bank fiat currency system, which we are all trapped in at the minute. So obviously financial crashes do happen. People have taken their lives because of it, and it's basically used, any financial crash in a fiat currency central bank country, which England is part of, is a predetermined and planned thing. It's basically a means of control. So financial crashes do happen. Currency devalues over time. The thing I would suggest to do is to hedge and to invest in things of physical value such as gold and silver, and then you're hedging against the system. You're not putting currency into the bank and being a part of a system where your currency devalues over time, because they can just print as much of it as they want at will. I'm not living on a knife edge waiting for a catastrophe to happen, he explains, although the mainstream media likes to portray that that's all preppers are doing, and it's just not the case. Stanford is hoping to take to the water after sunset, under the cover of darkness, to practice what might happen if he needed to flee. He believes this would be the optimal time of day to make his escape, so as not to be seen by others who might wish to steal his resources. He has already invested in a second canoe so that his son and former partner can join him. We do have strategies and a location in place where certain family members could actually meet up. He admits, keen to stress, he would never force his son to partake in his long-term interest. And that's exactly what prepping is. It's an interest, it's a hobby for me, it's a way of taking back what I'm naturally born with, which is the right to freedom, privacy and property, and, you know, to go about my business as long as I'm not causing anyone any harm or loss, and to enjoy what I do. And prepping is something that I do enjoy doing. Stanford's decision to prep was sparked almost 20 years ago after hearing the first-hand experiences of friends in the armed forces who had seen parts of their world devastated by war. There's a link here to the video. The preppers that were interviewed, they do an outstanding job of representing the prepper community. Everything that they say I agree with, like I've just said, and you know, they really represent the community very well. It's unfortunate that they're representing the community in an organisation and a system which has no interest in portraying the prepper community in a positive light, and examples of that come later in the article. This military theme runs throughout large parts of the prepping community, including in its survivalist attitude. While it's no secret that a lot of preppers do come from a military background, however, the mainstream media likes to assign this militant aspect to war preppers. They basically just think that we're some sort of militant jihadist group, that we will rise up and we disagree with the government about everything, you know, that we're going to take up arms against the government, you know, which is an option to anybody in any country, but it's not specifically something I think the prepping community is, you know, particularly going to do. Although preppers are usually natural leaders, they're of sound mind, they are intelligent, and these are skills which need to be in a lot of demand after, you know, the breakdown of society and stuff hits the fan. So I don't see any problem with that at all. A lot of people in the military are extremely experienced at preserving the communities that they are part of. In a farm in Bedfordshire, prepper Lincoln Miles shows off what he says is Europe's only prepping shop, where he sells everything from crossbows to cloves designed to help people survive in the case of a nuclear disaster. Again, we start coming into the weapons aspect. The mainstream media absolutely disgustingly portray guns, knives, and any other weapon as some sort of a thing which the mentally unstable have in their hands, and unfortunately they put the prepper community in the mentally unstable brackets. So they love to show preppers using knives and guns and crossbows, and they like to say that all of these things are a danger. It's just not the case. I created the shop to match the growing demand. He explains it is difficult to know how many preppers there are in the UK, as most keep their activities behind closed doors so as not to be recognised. But anecdotally, the community is believed to be growing. And this is only a good thing. A lot of people are waking up now. We haven't hit critical mass yet, but most people who wake up, including myself, get into prepping at some point, or at least I hope that they do, because it's really helped me. A lot of people who wake up get into prepping because it's a way of taking back and reclaiming what has been taken from you, and that's only a good thing. Again, we come into the weapons. They truly are disgusting, these people who vilify the prepper community. Miles' shop is littered with knives, displayed in almost every corner of the store. Again, the language that they use, littered, I doubt he's leaving knives all over the floor. That would be extremely dangerous for one thing. I'm sure it's a safe environment for people to shop in. Most are illegal to carry without good reason, something it would be difficult for preppers to claim they possess. This argument has ended before it's even started, really, because we are born with the natural right to defend ourselves. Nobody can take that away. As long as you're not causing anybody any harm or loss, it's absolutely ridiculous. And as a prepper, I carry what I want, where I want, whenever I want, and I carry what I believe will help me to defend myself and sustain my life. And, that's the end of it. These weapons, however, are not the only controversial items in the shop. Well, there's no controversy over weapons except for this mainstream media like to put out there, because they love to scare and put a lot of fear mongering into the herd populace. People who are extremely naive, who are very weak-minded, who have no critical, independent thoughts of their own, and they'll just take anything which the mainstream media portrays as negative, and then that then becomes part of their thoughts and their ideas about the prepping community. I doubt anyone who has any criticism towards preppers has spent any time on the prepping channels, and I don't think that they would have ever, really watched a video and seen what we do and the reasons why we prepare, because they would probably be scared, for one thing, and they might see something which actually interests them if they were to do so. So they really need to detach themselves from the mainstream media, the populace, but it's obviously an extremely hard thing to do. But when you have such fantastic people as Pete Wiseman and Armoured Cockroach, who represent the community really well, things that the mainstream media likes to say that's what you'll see when you visit these channels. These weapons, however, are not the only controversial items in the shop. Hanging proudly at the back is the Confederate flag. I see it as a symbol of freedom and detachment from the government, Miles explains. The flag is also tattooed on his arm. Again, they're putting this rhetoric out there that the Confederate flag is a bad thing, and the only people that are saying this is the mainstream media themselves, and that's just part of the agenda that they have. And hangs on the rear view mirror of his car. Despite its links with the US Civil War and connotations of racism, well, the only people that have seen it as racist is the mainstream media. Unfortunately, the extremely weak-minded and naive populace then start to believe it is actually linked with racism. So it's just unfortunately how it is. I feel really sorry for these people that are so controlled, and their opinion is just so molded by the mainstream media that they don't have any critical, independent thoughts of their own. It's just the mainstream media that are saying this. Miles sees it as the perfect symbol of a prepper. I'm sure a lot of people do see the Confederate flag as the perfect symbol of their preparedness, and I'm sure it draws a lot of inspiration and helps them to prepare. It's not my symbol as a prepper, but that's their business. They want to use that as a symbol. Absolutely fine. It's about relying on yourself and not relying on anyone else, the government or your neighbour. Anyone but yourself, he says. Prepping is conventionally linked with the US, with self-sustainability and freedom from the government being large factors. I don't see any problem with any of those beliefs. Self-sustainability is an inherent right and should be promoted. There's no need for anyone to be completely attached to the government or in any other body. So disgustingly as what we currently see the masses attached to them. The current encroachment into everyone's lives and the gradual eradication of the rights that we're naturally born with by government needs to be combated, and it needs to be stopped, basically. We have blockers for phones to stop people like the government tracing them. It's a fact they're tracing us, so this gives us freedom from that. We trust them too much. Yeah, absolutely, but I doubt the blockers work as well as what people would like them to work. They created the cellular network, they created the technology, and they know how to get around it. In fact, we trust a lot of people too much in times of need. They won't be there for us. I would say that's probably 95% true. It means it's all the more important to establish a really good group around you, family, friends, other like-minded individuals who accept preparedness and accept it for what it is, which is, taking back the freedom that you're born with, self-reliance, etc. Prepping vocabulary. There are a number of terms used by the prepping community to describe their practice. Here are some examples. Then it obviously lists these that we're all familiar with as a prepper. The last one though, zombie, which they attach to the naive masses. I don't call them zombies because a zombie wouldn't be able to watch the mainstream media. A zombie wouldn't understand what the mainstream media is telling them. Yet the sheep, as I call them, they do understand. They're so brainwashed by it that it affects their judgment. It even dictates their interaction with people who are preppers, and it's in a negative way. It's not in a positive way because of the portrayal of preppers in the mainstream media as mentally unstable, lone wolf survivalists who at the end of days are just going to go off into the woods and just basically sleep there until it's all over and done with. It's the idea of every person for themselves comes up frequently in the world of prepping. I've never seen that, to be honest. I've been a prepper for over 3 years now, and I've never seen any of this lone wolf, every person for themselves attitude. I haven't seen it at all. In fact, part of being a prepper is being aware of other people's needs and thinking about your community, however big that community is, whether it's family, friends, or a town, a city, a country. I think preppers in general care more for their community and more for themselves and others than the naive masses, to be honest. Most preppers tend to look inwards at their own survival as opposed to that of a community as a whole. It may start off as an individual thing due to like your bug out bag, equipment that you are going to carry on you, for instance, but it very quickly expands to people around you. In the forests of Hertfordshire, Michael Sanderson, known to most as Roach, has a knife that bears his name. Again, they're bringing out weapons when there's just no need to. He stands alongside his self-modified 4x4 featuring a tent big enough for him, his wife and 2 children on the roof. Attached to the car's side is a table and a hob on which he cooks bangers and mash. This isn't survival, this is just living simply. He explains, I don't want the world to end, I don't want bad things to happen to good people, but I'm not in control of the world. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that 100%. It's in fact the people in control of the world that I'm preparing against and for the actions that they are going to take against the world. Roach is an ex-military man who spent most of his working life in the armed forces as a paramedic. He has seen things many of us would never wish to experience and believes it was this that set him on course to becoming a prepper. Again, you know, there's a lot of preppers who were in the military, and as a prepper who's learnt a lot from them and their channels, I'm extremely grateful for the experiences that they've obtained and the situations that they found themselves in and practiced those skills in, such as combat, is not something that the average everyday individual, you know, wants to experience or could even handle if it was to come to their front door. So having people like this who've experienced it but are yet of sound mind enough to share their experiences in a very educational and positive way is extremely brave of them, for one thing, and it's another very much appreciated by people like myself who haven't experienced the things that they have, yet we can learn from their experiences to help ourselves and others. I'm not paranoid, these things can and do happen, he explains, referencing abuse he has received about his state of mind. Again, who's been propagating this about preppers being mentally unstable? It's the mainstream media that preppers are talking to. Personally, from my point of view, I wouldn't be talking to the enemy, because these people have a YouTube channel and people can visit the channel and they can make up their own minds. And, you know, they won't get out to as big an audience as this, but it's the quality of the audience that we need to be talking to. It's not the quantity. The channels on YouTube that preppers do, they have a lot of quality content which is specific to the area that they're knowledgeable in, and it brings in a much higher quality of audience because it's people who are genuinely interested in the topic, and they're not going to come with the prejudice that they've assimilated from the mainstream media. Roach says he has even had 2 cars set alight as a consequence of prepping. Wow. I mean, I never knew about that. That's absolutely disgusting. The people who perpetrated those crimes, you know, what molded their opinion of preppers that they had to do this criminal activity? You know, they're influenced by the slightest thing that the mainstream media puts out there, that they then had to go out and physically cause criminal damage to material that this individual uses. I mean, that's just absolutely disgusting. It's the reason why, as a prepper, you shouldn't share to anyone that you are a prepper. You definitely want to maintain operational security and keep the fact that you are a prepper to as small a community as possible. Obviously, if you're putting a channel on YouTube and you're sharing skills and you don't want to be showing all of your preps, you don't want to be showing all of your actions that you're going to take in stuff hits the fan, you don't want to be showing all of your equipment, You definitely don't want to be showing where you live. You definitely don't want to be giving any clues as to the full extent of your preps. You don't want to be showing them things that you're going to use to defend yourself. And you just want to share your knowledge and things that help people to prepare, and just give them alternatives to the system which is currently in place, and encourage them to learn skills that will help them. His view, however, is that prepping is simply about remaining in control. Absolutely. It's not just about the end of the world. We prepare for everything. What would happen if you lost your job tomorrow? Would you have enough food and money to survive and provide for your family? If you're one of the masses who aren't prepared, then no, you won't have enough food and money to survive, and you definitely won't be able to provide for your family. That's something that they really need to think about. I know that obviously their judgment is impaired, but it's just something that everyone should be considering. At some point, something will happen in their lives which will make them think about that sort of thing. Unfortunately, for the herd masses, it often does it takes something big, a big shake, to wake them up. The name Roach comes from Michael's YouTube channel, Armored Cockroach, where he shares examples of his prepping with other people around the globe. He believes those who do not prepare are naive. I'd go further than that and say they're not just naive, they're dangerous. When people say, Roach, I can't believe you're a prepper, I reply with, I can't believe you aren't. It's important we don't underestimate how quickly things could turn sour. People often say that we are 3 square meals away from total chaos, and I think there's probably a lot of truth in that. Roach admits he's taken it too far in the eyes of many, but he insists prepping is a broad concept and many of us are prepared whether we know it or not. So yeah, in the winter you'll put extra clothes in, you'll put food and water, you'll put a shovel in there to dig yourself out of the snow, you'll put antifreeze into the water in your vehicle. That's preparing. You could put every spare penny you have in the bank for a rainy day. I wouldn't recommend that. Currency devalues. That's prepping. You could pay your mortgage off 10 years early. Whatever you decide you need to do to prepare for the future, that makes you a prepper. And that's absolutely true. So I agree with all the points that these preppers have raised. They are preppers that have influenced me whilst I've been prepping. They're extremely intelligent, sound-minded individuals as far as I can see. And, I can see that they know that preppers are portrayed in a bad light, and they didn't give the mainstream media channel that this article is on very much room to maneuver, and that's a good thing. You have to be aware about who is broadcasting the rhetoric about preppers at the minute. They see preppers as mentally unstable militants who are going to take up arms and who have arms such as guns, crossbows and knives, and they see a problem with it and they'll broadcast this rhetoric. To talk to these people is to talk to the enemy. I really applaud these people for doing this article, and they're an outstanding representation of the prepper community. But personally, I wouldn't be talking to the mainstream media. It's not something that's going to do anybody any good. You're just playing into their hands, and I really applaud them for doing it. So that's my thought on this article, guys. You're free to go and look at it. I'm sure you'll come across it on the mainstream media website that it's on. I'm not going to put a link to it because I don't agree with the historical and current sexual abuse of children. Thank you very much for watching, and to be safe and to be prepared.